about 6 months ago, I had a friend of mine on the podcast named Nick Bradley, episode 95 of the Sweaty Startup Podcast. Excellent listen. And Nick said something interesting. He said, every day 10,000 Americans retire, or they reach retirement age. A lot less than that retire because most of them are broke and have no savings, but that's the fact still remains that 10,000 Americans a day reach retirement age. And when you look at service-based entrepreneurship, service-based businesses like the ones that I promote starting, so many of those businesses are owned by the baby boomers, by the people that are 50 to 70 years old now. And Nick on the podcast was talking about something very interesting, that so many of these businesses are profitable. Not necessarily huge businesses, but they do anywhere from a couple $100,000 to several $1 million a year in sales. And when the owner reaches retirement age and wants to pass the business on, very few of his or her children or family have any desire at all to take over the business. So what that leaves is a massive void, a massive supply and demand problem of these businesses that are for sale, that are owned by people about to retire, and very few people out there willing and able to buy the businesses. So what he said basically, Nick came on the podcast, and I encourage you to listen to episode 95. He said, if you're starting a business, or if you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you're interested in starting a business, why would you do all the work to build the customer base, build the systems, build the employees, gather the equipment? And sometimes this takes 5 years. For me, in my storage business, it really took 3 years before we were profitable. If I was going to do it all over again, I could maybe get to a profitable point in 2 years. But you're dealing with a fresh slate of a brand new website, a brand new customer base, a brand new model. Why would you not just buy a business that basically has no home anyway? You're not competing with hardly any buyers, and you can already get past that initial startup phase. That's the toughest part and the highest risk part. What Nick was saying is there's a massive supply and demand problem here. There are way more businesses for sale than there are people who are willing and able to take on the risk of buying a business. Far too many people don't even consider buying a business. And before I had him on the podcast, I actually released an episode that said, why would you ever buy a business when it's so fun and easy and you kind of learn along the way when you start a business? And I really had a change of heart when I looked at the economics of it, and when I looked at the fact that you can buy a business right now that profits $200,000 a year. You can buy it right now for $500,000. And this was 6 months ago. I'm going to talk in a minute about this current situation. But the way this works is there are sign companies, roofing companies, home inspection companies, pest control companies, landscaping companies, lawn care companies, cleaning companies, power washing companies, concrete companies, you name it. All of these little small businesses where the owners don't even really consider themselves entrepreneurs. They still work in the business. They don't have a scalable model, but these businesses spit out money every single day, and they have for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And these people have nobody willing to buy the businesses, and you can buy them for 2 times, 3 times, 4 times their annual profit. So if you look at the return on investment of that, you're talking about, if you buy a business for 2 times its annual profit, if you buy a business that profits $250,000 a year for $500,000, which you can do, you're getting a 50% first year ROI on your money. So if you consider yourself reasonably competent, if you consider yourself reasonably experienced, if you consider yourself a reasonable operator, a skilled operator, why would you not look at buying a business over building one from scratch? And then the COVID pandemic happens, and you have a ton of owners, operators who have successful businesses, have profitable models, have a valuable brand in a given city. And now all of a sudden things stop for a month or 2 months, and they can't pay their bills. They go into a little bit of financial difficulty. And another thing with these owners is they experience lifestyle creep. And what lifestyle creep is, it's when the more money you make, the more money you spend. So instead of living in a $300,000 house like mine, maybe an owner who makes a couple $100,000 a year buys a $700,000 house. Maybe they buy a brand new Ford F-250 Platinum for $70,000. Maybe they put their wife in a BMW. Maybe they buy their kid a brand new car when they turn 16. Maybe they buy a boat or a camper or whatever it is. But people find a way to spend the money that they make. And then times get a little bit hard, like this, and things slow down a lot. All of a sudden, the business is in a severe financial hardship. And that's what I'm most worried about this pandemic. So many people spend and need and require their businesses to produce the money that they had been producing for the previous 10 years of economic boom. And now we're entering a little bit of a recession where everything slows down. When you're so dependent on that profit from your business every single month, you can go south really, really quick. I don't know, obviously, but I predict this COVID pandemic really producing a ton of business buying opportunities. Actually, I'm sure of it. It's not a prediction. I'm sure that there will be a ton of business buying opportunities right now. That if you can buy these businesses, restructure some of the debt, leave some of the debt on the old owner, say, hey, I want to buy your lawn care business, but I don't want to buy your 3 brand new F-250 trucks that you still owe $40,000 on. I'm going to buy these $5,000 trucks that do the same job. I mean, we talk all the time about building a lean business. And, I don't really want to take over the lease that your pest control company is in this office building. I want to open a remote business, and I want to employ some technology, and I want to lay off 4 or 5 of your staff. I want to really cut the overhead. There are some opportunities to pick up businesses that are extremely profitable, that produce amazing year-over-year cash flows, that the owner got in a tight spot during this little bit of a pandemic here, the little bit of a slowdown. Sorry, not a little bit of a pandemic. This has been an extremely big deal. But when things slowed down here, the owner may have gotten themselves in a really tight spot. And that's a great opportunity, a tremendous opportunity for an entrepreneur with a little bit of money, not a lot of money, but a little bit of money and a little bit of management experience to take over, to buy the business for pennies on the dollar. Another thing about buying these businesses that you can't forget, and Nick talks about this in episode 95 of the Sweaty Startup Podcast. And if you want to listen to this, it's one of the most downloaded episodes on my podcast. It's on YouTube. If you search Nick Bradley Sweaty Startup, you can find it. And if you're listening to this, you can go to episode 95 of the Sweaty Startup Podcast. You can hear what he says. But a lot of times you can buy these businesses for virtually none of your own money. There are so few buyers out there. There are so few people that know how, that are comfortable enough to buy these service businesses that are not scalable, that you can seller finance them, which means you go to the seller and say, hey, look, your business is worth $500,000, even though it makes $250,000 a year. I want to pay you $500,000, but I only want to pay you $100,000 of it right now, and I want to pay you the other $400,000 over time, and I want you to finance it for me. You can either finance it as an earnout, or we can finance it as I pay you interest every single year. But basically, I'm only going to get a little bit of the cash, and you can get an SBA loan. It's really, really funny because a friend of mine, Jay Scott on Facebook, he's an amazing thinker and writer and entrepreneur, and he's kind of analyzing all this COVID stuff, and he actually made a really good point that if you buy a business before September of 2020, the U.S. government, through the COVID stimulus, will make your first 6 payments for you. Really interesting read. I'll try to link to that in the show notes, but if I forget, just search Jay Scott on Facebook and go back and read some of his posts. But it's an amazing time to buy a business. Sometimes you can completely seller finance the business, so you just pay him out of the profits that the business already makes over the next couple of years. You can hedge your risk that way too. You can say, hey, look, if this business stops making money and it doesn't hit certain earning thresholds, I'm not going to pay you. That's completely normal in this world. Again, it does not make sense how much money these businesses make and how much money you can buy them for. So if you're sitting right now having a little bit of management experience, a little bit of money, looking for an opportunity, go on bizbuysell.com. That's a brokerage site in the United States where you can find businesses for sale. You can find all these opportunities, and talk to your local business brokers. Tonight when you go home, before you go to bed, or tomorrow morning when you wake up, before you do anything else, send 10 emails to business brokers in your state and say, hey, look, this is my situation. I have some money set aside. I'm a serious buyer. I have a lot of management experience. I'm looking for a service business in this area. Maybe it's distressed, maybe it's not, that is looking for a new owner. Let me know what you have. And right away, he or she will start sending you businesses that are for sale right now. And this is going to be an amazing opportunity. When times get tough, when times were good 6 months ago, people couldn't sell businesses. These brokers could not sell businesses for 2 or 3 times their earnings. I explored selling Storage Squad, which I'm going to do an episode on, but I explored selling it. We clear almost $500,000 a year in cash flow, and the best offer we could get was a little bit over $1 million. Unbelievable, right? So put your name in the hat, study it, read up on it a ton, read up on buying a business. There's tons of great books out there. I'll try to link to a couple in the show notes. But if you get confidence with this, if you start studying it, you'll see very quickly that it might make sense right now for you to buy a business, because with this uncertainty, with the COVID pandemic, with the SBA grants and stimulus, you can hedge almost all of your risk. You can find a business, you can restructure it so that it's lean and not a huge risk financially for you, and you can have an amazing asset going forward. So please think about it. And in my opinion, I'm going to say it right now, the next 6 months in the United States, you will see the best opportunity to buy a business that we've ever seen. The best opportunity to buy a business that we have ever seen. You'll be able to buy it in a low risk way. You'll be able to find a lean business that you can either restructure or is already lean, that can survive the downturn. And the amount of risk going on right now will make sellers ready to unload businesses, and you will call the shots. The thing about this is, as you're negotiating with these business owners, understand that there are 20 deals for every one buyer. So you have all the leverage. Nick Bradley says it in episode 95. He says, if they don't like my terms, if they don't agree to seller financing, I just move on to the next deal, because there are way more deals than there are buyers. So I know I have all the power, I know I have all the leverage, and I know that I don't need to have anything in this agreement that I don't love. And it can be very self-aware as you start to talk to these brokers that the buyers have all the power, because there are not enough buyers for these businesses. Another thing before we sign off on this topic, it's an emotional thing for a business owner. Imagine you yourself as a 65-year-old. You have kids that don't want to take over your business, but you've poured your life and soul into it. You've got an amazing thing to show for it. You've built wealth for your family, but nobody wants to take over your business. You have 2 options. You can sell your business, or you can shut it down. You can sell your business and it can live on and the name can carry on, or you can shut it down altogether. What are you going to do? It's a very emotional thing. I put myself in those shoes, and I want my business to live on. If somebody's shopping for my business and I like them, they're a likable person, I can trust them, I think that they're going to care about my business and try to grow it to the next level, or try to get my legacy to live on, I would much rather come to terms with that person to buy the business than I would shut it down. Get in the room with some of these owners. Get in the room with some of these 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and talk about them. Ask them about why they started the business. Ask them about why they care about it. Ask them about themselves. Ask them about the journey. Show that you really care about that business. And I'm not saying to be ungenuine to find yourself a deal. Really find interest in that person. Find interest in what their goals were. Find interest in the business itself. Build some rapport with that owner, and you might just find somebody who trusts you enough to bring you on as an employee for a year, transition to you buying the company from them over a couple years after that with no risk at all. It's amazing what you can do if you show interest in something, show that you're competent, show that you're serious, and approach some of these people. Put yourself out there. Even if you have no money, even if you have no experience, even if you have no plan to buy a business, reach out to a couple brokers, explore it, start to get the cash flows in, start to do your own cash flow projections, and you'll be blown away by the opportunities out there right now. So keep it in mind and let me know in the comments how it goes for you.